Terraria is just one of those games. I mean, perennial is how I like to describe it. It's just a game that whether you just finished a playthrough, doing your first playthrough, or haven't played in a few weeks, a few months, a few days, you can jump right in and just start having a barrel of fun immediately. And it's not like there's some subscription model or a steep price tag for this amazing, infinitely replayable video game. I paid $6 for this game in like 2013, 2014, something like that. I might have my timeline mixed up, but like, I paid $6 for Look at those hours. Look, I should be ashamed of myself. And I know these are rookie numbers for some of you. But yeah, I'm not trying to be like hyperbolic or exaggerated with that title. I genuinely think Terraria is the greatest video game of all time, in my opinion. Now, is it my favorite game of all time? No, I have more nostalgia tied up in other things, but in terms of like what I think is like an objectively good game with very few actual criticisms that I have against this, Terraria is it. It's the best one. So what do you do in Terraria? Well, the marketing would tell you you dig, fight, and build. And really, that's kind of it. But there's a lot more to it than that. A lot of people in both YouTube and the wider internet, game journalism, like to compare Terraria to like a 2D Minecraft when really, other than being a sandbox game and having squares, it couldn't be further from the truth. Because Minecraft is a game all about player expression, and while there is a ton of player expression, really, when you're looking at Terraria, Terraria is a game about progress, progression, goals, extrinsic rewards. And this is not like a good or bad thing, and of course, there are extrinsic goals to work towards in a game like Minecraft, and there are intrinsic goals to work towards in a game like Terraria. What I'm saying is the focus is different, and that sets Minecraft and Terraria worlds apart in terms of flavor and vibes. So yeah, the basic rundown is this. You can dig. You can dig around. You have a pickaxe. You can burrow under the ground, find caves, find loot in those caves, find ores, other materials you can turn into stuff. You can find new biomes such as jungles and underground glowing mushroom biomes, and hell, every world has an evil biome, either the corruption or the crimson gang. Really, dig, I think, should be replaced with explore, because there's a lot less to do with digging as your main action, and a lot more to do with like walking around in the underground and like seeing what's around and looking at stuff, picking stuff up, seeing what it does, what you can craft it into, seeing what an item does, or do I like this item better than that one? It's a lot of discovery, and discovery that is procedurally generated, so it's interesting even on repeat playthroughs. Sometimes you'll get a Terragrim or an enchanted sword. Sometimes you'll never see that in your life. Sometimes you'll have maxed out health within 15 minutes of starting your world. Sometimes you'll have 120 health in an hour of gameplay. It all depends on how your world generates and how you yourself choose to play. And there is so much to find and discover here. There's the general overworld. There's all of the surface, which has a bunch of different biomes, and then corresponding different underground biomes as well. You have the surface, desert, jungle, 2 beaches, a dungeon, an underground temple, an evil biome, and then, after a certain boss, Wall of Flesh, suddenly things change all around your world. You get a new surface and underground biome called the Hallow, which changes your world. And you get brand new enemies to fight in every biome, brand new stuff to get. everywhere. And this just keeps happening. The dungeon, which is a pre-Wall of Flesh explorable area, suddenly gets revamped with all new enemies after some random boss in the jungle. Terraria is so good at taking all of its world and all of its explorable area and just doing the absolute most with it, making it as densely packed as they possibly can and giving you reasons and incentives to revisit them multiple times throughout a playthrough. No two Terraria worlds are alike, and your world is such a focal point of your playthrough that no two Terraria playthroughs, no matter how hard you try, will ever be the same. Let's get to the fight portion of Dig Fight Build. So, fighting is a lot of what you do in Terraria. It is a lot of what people think of when they think of Terraria. Like Terraria fans, when you talk about Terraria, a lot of people are like, oh, they're talking about the bosses. You know, they're talking about Skeletron, they're talking about Plantera, they're talking about, Moonlord, whatever. But fighting is much more pervasive than that. Fighting is the thing that drives all of the gameplay in Terraria. Because if you didn't want to fight these fun and immaculately designed bosses, you wouldn't have any incentive to explore. You wouldn't have any incentive to build. You wouldn't have any incentive to play if there wasn't anything to fight. And it's important to note here that the devs have made it really fun to fight. If it wasn't fun to fight bosses, people wouldn't talk about the bosses. But they do, because it's fun. You have 4 different classes you can play. You have melee, ranged, mage, and summoner, RIP thrower, and they're all fleshed out. They have detailed, varied, meticulously laid out progression throughout all stages of the game, and they're all fun in their own ways and very distinct from one another. The melee class centers mainly around drawing aggro and being very tanky, while being able to dish out respectable DPS depending on what weapon you're using. Later in the game, melee gets a lot of swords that shoot projectiles, but these projectiles don't do nearly as much DPS as if you actually hit them with the literal sword you're swinging. So it's kind of a trade-off. You have to put yourself in danger to maximize your DPS. Otherwise, you are super beefy, but you're not the DPS king in any situation. Ranger is kind of the jack-of-all-trades class. You don't have to extend yourself close to the boss to be able to get maximum damage. You do have to maintain a resource in ammo for most of your weapons, but that's usually abundant. You have decent defenses, decent mobility, decent damage. It's all around good. Nothing great that it excels at, but simultaneously nothing that it sucks at all. Mage is kind of the glass cannon sort of thing, if you want to look at it that way. It doesn't have the lowest defense of everything, but it certainly is lower than Ranger or Melee. But to make up for that, mages tend to do a ton of DPS and have ridiculously strong weapons. As a mage, you're able to melt some bosses and events like they're nothing. You do, however, have to prioritize how you're going to manage your resource mana by either drinking potions, sacrificing an accessory slot to auto-drink potions for you, or just letting it regenerate. You can't constantly dish out DPS without it costing you something. And then there's Summoner, which is the squishiest of all the classes, but in exchange gets to basically not play the game if you don't want to. Summoner is a class that allows you to summon a bunch of little minions to fight for you. And while there are whips and things that allow you to play a more active role in combat, if you want to, Summoner can just purely focus on dodging attacks, which makes it easy for somebody who wants to not focus on a boss to learn a pattern and really learn how to dodge that boss. But as a trade-off, you're not going to do crazy damage by just passively letting your minions chip away at the boss, nor can you take that many hits because you are squishy. Like I said, all these classes are fun and distinct and fully complete, and they have a variety of options with which you can complete any given challenge throughout every stage of the game. They are masterfully designed, and if they introduced a 5th class, I have no doubt that they'd somehow find a way to carve out a niche for that one as well and make it just as good. But how can you fight without enemies to fight? Well, let's talk about the bosses. We're just going to go through all of them. We're going to talk about them. They're awesome, and they deserve their own little segment. There's King Slime, a bigger version of the most basic enemy you can fight in the game. He's kind of a tutorial boss, but he's no slouch either. He used to be a lot easier to cheese, but since then they've kind of patched out a lot of ways you can cheese him, and you do have to take this guy on head to head now. You can't just sit there and chip away at him while he can't hit you, at least not very easily. He doesn't drop anything crazy, just generally a good, fun early game boss. Then there's Eye of Cthulhu, which is arguably the most iconic boss in this game and the first real challenge for new players, as it can kind of rush you down. It flies through blocks. It doesn't care what you put in its way. It will fly through it. It will just keep persisting after you until daylight comes, it dies, or you die. It has a second phase, which probably would blow somebody's mind if they hadn't seen it before. It gets much more aggressive, and on higher difficulty levels, it has a desperation phase even. It ends up dropping a new kind of ore that you can use as part of your progression, and on expert difficulty and up, drops the best accessory in the game. Shield of Cthulhu. I love this thing. Then you have your World Evil boss. This is based on those 2 world evils I mentioned earlier. You have to go to those biomes and break little corresponding bulbs and orbs and hearts to unlock this boss that you have to fight that's themed after whatever evil biome you have. So for Corruption, you have the Eater of Worlds. It's kind of a worm boss that's broken up into a billion segments and dies really easily to piercing damage, but otherwise is really fun and really well designed. And the Brain of Cthulhu, which is themed after the Crimson biome, and has a bunch of little eyes, and then ends up having this like mirror trick mechanic in its second phase, which is really cool. Both of these bosses will drop not only more of your new ore that you got from Eye of Cthulhu, but also a secondary material to go along with it to create new tools, namely a pickaxe, to allow you to get the next tier of items, along with a set of armor and some weapons and other things. There's Queen Bee, which is the first jungle boss. She's an optional boss. She's not required for progression, but her weapons are all really funny because they're all bee themed and generally pretty good. And there's, of course, exceptional weapons that she drops, like bee nades. She's certainly worth the fight. She also unlocks your NPC, the Witch Doctor. Then there's Skeletron. You have to fight him before you can enter your world's dungeon. If you try to enter your dungeon before then, you kind of get... Skeletron doesn't actually have that many drops, but he does unlock your whole dungeon for you, which does have drops and progression. It has some good weapons, some weapons that are ingredients for good weapons, and the shadow keys, which can be used in hell to unlock other good weapons and other things. Then, of course, there's Deerclops, which is another optional boss, and also a crossover with Don't Starve. It's really cool, really well designed. I like it. It's fun. It's optional. It doesn't drop anything too crazy good. It's just fun, and it's worth the fight for the gold at the very least. And then you have Wall of Flesh, which I mentioned earlier. This is the end of the pre-hard mode segment of the game. Past Wall of Flesh, your world enters hard mode. A lot of things change here. You get a new biome. Most of your biomes gain new enemies, new materials. You gain 3 new types of ores, all sorts of stuff. All of that is from defeating the Wall of Flesh. The Wall of Flesh is this mad dash through hell backwards from the Wall of Flesh because you can't get on the other side of it, hoping you can kill it before it kills you or you run out of room to run away from it. After Wall of Flesh, we enter hard mode where, you guessed it, the game gets harder, but we also see some familiar faces in new forms. The earliest boss we can fight here is Queen Slime. She doesn't drop anything particularly pertinent to our progression, but she does drop a few good things, namely like Blade Staff, and she's a good intro to how hard mode fights differ from pre-hard mode fights, generally speaking. There's a lot more movement, there's a lot more projectiles, it's generally faster paced. Then you have the 3 mechanical bosses, which can be fought in any order. You just have to defeat all 3 of them eventually. There's the twins, which is a mechanical version of the Eye of Cthulhu, but there's 2 of them now. One spits flames and one shoots lasers. They're really fun. You can try to take them out one at a time or try to whittle down both their health bars and kind of juggle them. There's the Destroyer, a mechanical version of the Eater of Worlds, which there is no mechanical brain. It's just not in the game. You have to fight the Destroyer no matter what kind of evil you have in your world. But it's kind of more the same of Eater of Worlds in that it really doesn't like piercing damage. It kind of can't get too far out of the ground. And it tries to ram you a bunch. But unlike Eater of Worlds, which likes to split into different segments, Destroyer, when you destroy certain segments of it, pops off a probe that then circles around you and shoots lasers at you. It's harder to manage, but ultimately is what I consider to be the easiest of the mech bosses. Finally, there's Skeletron Prime, which is Skeletron, but 4 arms now, and also weapons on each arm instead of hands. I would consider him probably the hardest of the mech bosses, but honestly, these guys are pretty easy. Generally, if you have the non-mech versions fights down, you can translate a lot of that muscle memory into the mech bosses fights, and that makes them a perfect first real boss rush for hard mode. We're easing you in with ramped up versions of bosses you already fought before we throw you off the deep end with things like Plantera and Empress of Light and Duke Fishron, who we'll talk about. Once you defeat all 3 mech bosses, you can start to find things in the jungle, namely Chlorophyte Ore, Life Fruit, and Plantera's bulbs. You have to fight Plantera in the jungle now. This is our second jungle boss. Plantera is a plant bulb. It's got a bunch of vines coming out, and she's awesome. She's one of my favorite bosses in the whole game. Circle strafing this one is usually the strat here, but she shoots a bunch of thorns out at you. She has a second phase where the bulb opens up and she tries to ram you, and her vines get more deadly. She has projectiles. She's either going to be a pain point or you're going to breeze through her and never anywhere in between. After Plantera, you can go into this temple that you probably noticed while exploring your jungle as you get the key from Plantera. Go in there and you find these like power cells that you use on an altar, and boom, we have Gollum. And there went Gollum. Then there's my favorite boss in the game, my glorious king, Duke Fishron. Duke Fishron is aggressive, mobile, has a ton of projectiles, and somehow feels fair while simultaneously being tough as nails to fight. He has great drops. He is optional, but some of these drops are insanely important for the way I like to progress in Terraria. I go to the end of the game with the Razorblade Typhoon and the Tsunami and the Fishron Wings and his mount. Love this boss. Then we have my other favorite boss in the game, Empress of Light. Empress of Light is kind of the game's bullet hell boss in that she has a ton of projectiles that are very telegraphed but very hard to dodge because there is a lot of them, and They go off a lot. However, she, like Duke Fishron, is kind of in the similar vein of being highly mobile, highly aggressive bosses. And they're kind of tough to fight, but they're very, very fun to fight. They feel fair. You never feel like you were bullshit out of a victory with these bosses. Both of which are optional. You can go from Golem and just skip over these last two bosses. You don't have to fight them at all, but you should. Next, you'll find these cultists kind of doing like a chant or a prayer in your dungeon. And you can kill him, and it summons the lunatic cultist. And he can be hard. Some people struggle with him. I've never really struggled with him, but there have been times when he has been more of a pain. But Cultist really isn't meant to be a super hard boss fight. He's just kind of a bad omen for things to come. And that is the lunar pillars. Killing these 4 lunar pillars gives you access to lunar weapons. And also... Oh, shit. Okay. What? Oh god, oh fuck, oh god. Moonlord, the final boss of the game. Defeating that gives you the access to the ultimate armor sets and accessories and all sorts of other gear, weapons, materials, a portal gun. And from there, you've kind of completed the main meat of the extrinsic side of Terraria's progression. But that doesn't mean the game's over with. We still haven't talked about build. Building in Terraria is both essential for progression and also really fun. At some point, you're going to have to build things. There are enemies outside no matter where you are. And unless you feel like getting aggravated by these enemies 24/7, you are going to have to at least build a box to hide in. However, you'll notice when you start a world, you have an NPC with you, the guide. And the guide may inform you that you can build homes for NPCs. And if you build more than one home, maybe more than one NPC will move in. NPCs can be indispensable. The nurse can heal you instantly back to full health. Demolitionist sells explosives, which is essential for the building portion of the game for emptying out spaces. The guide himself helps you with crafting recipes. You put a material into his little slot there, and he tells you everything you can do with that material. I could go on all day about how every NPC in the game is useful in some way, but I won't. They're all good. You want them all to move in. And they all move in based on certain conditions. I mentioned before, Queen Bee being defeated gets the Witch Doctor NPC to move in. There are all sorts of conditions. The Merchant NPC, you just have to have a gold coin in your inventory. You have to get a gun to get the arms dealer to move in. So on and so forth. This is about discovery. You discover these NPCs can move in, and so you keep building because you want to progress. And NPCs help with progression. You can also build things for other reasons. You want to fight a boss, you want to make it easier, you build an arena made of platforms that you can fall through and stand on and run along and grapple to and all sorts of other things so that you can be more easily maneuverable and you're not fighting the terrain while you're simultaneously fighting a boss. You can build AFK farms to farm enemies for certain rare drops like biome keys, dark shard, light shard, rod of discord, and all sorts of other things that you might want from just little tiny NPC monsters. I explain all this to you, the whole dig fight build thing, to make a point here. Terraria, while being a sandbox game, is much more focused of a sandbox than your average sandbox game. Terraria allows you to explore, they allow you to do combat, and they allow you to build and shape this world to your liking with the ultimate goal of progression. Everything you do in this game, whether you explore, you fight, or you build, helps you progress to that next tier of power, to defeating that next boss, to getting that new material or that new weapon you wanted. Terraria is laser focused on making every single aspect of this game relevant to progression, except golf. I want to talk quickly about the art in this game because it is gorgeous. Somehow the absolute fucking madmen at Relogic have managed to make this game come together in a way that's visually cohesive despite all these disparate elements and pure nonsense that shows up in this video game. Speaking of nonsense, I'd like to add that this video game has a way of sort of slowly ratcheting up the nonsense meter as you play, to the point where at first, you know, you encounter standard fantasy enemy slimes. You go underground, you know, you fight a mother slime which splits into smaller slimes. You're like, oh, okay, big slime. And then the first boss is King Slime, which is the biggest slime. Okay, cool, that makes sense. It tracks. There's logic there. Then you fight a big pig fish thing in the water, and the final boss drops the portal gun from Portal, and you're just like, sure, whatever. Like, by that point, the nonsense meter is ratcheted up so high, you're like, yeah, that tracks, that makes sense. The music is also really, really good, and I really know nothing about music or music theory. I can't tell you why it's good. I don't have the words to articulate it, but I think the best way I can describe how good this music is people keep doing this in the Steam reviews for Terraria and other different games that have nothing to do with Terraria. Music's good. I want to quickly talk about the devs and sort of the community support aspect to this game, because the conversations taking place around the game and how the devs sort of carry themselves online really can affect the perception of a video game, and I feel like that has really put Terraria over the top when it comes to indie games and how they're perceived online. I feel like we're seeing a lot more indie games crop up and then build communities around people and figureheads who aren't really nice to their fans or don't interact to their fans and are kind of absent. And like, to me, indie gaming really shines whenever you have a more personal connection with the devs. There's one or maybe a handful of people who are behind this game that you love, and you may be able to have a literal conversation with them online, one-on-one. Good at. They are so active in the community. They are responding to requests, to questions. They're interacting with community memes and just cracking jokes at their own expense. They're having a blast, and it's very obvious that they love this game and they love this community and they want to see it thrive. When you look at big AAA games like, say, Call of Duty, there can be large community sentiment around something that people don't like, and it can take multiple installments of the franchise before that thing actually gets fixed, because there's a whole corporation behind it. There's not a focused effort to interact and be active in the community and understand what the community wants and needs. And so that's sort of the difference, right? You have a committee of people who have to sign off on changes with AAA gaming, but with indie gaming, Red can just decide he wants poo blocks in the game, and there they are. If by some incredibly slim chance someone who has or is working on Terraria watches this video and listens to this, thank you for making this community so special and this game that is so dear to me. Let's talk about mods, because at this point mods are kind of inseparable from the game's identity online. When you think of Terraria, a lot of the time the discussion also goes to mods, either small quality of life mods like magic storage or ginormous content overhaul mods like Calamity. Regardless of what size or shape your mod takes, if you mod, you're cool as fuck. Terraria's mod creators are so insanely talented, it's crazy. I mean, what the fuck? Holy shit. You guys are awesome. Go Go get a job in actual game dev where you get paid to do this, because this is ridiculous, guys. You can't keep doing this for free. This is amazing. I want to end this off by really expressing what Terraria means to me. If I had to put it into words, a labor of love. It is a game that is very clearly a passion project for all the people involved with it. Guys, this is a game that came out in 2011, and the developers cannot stay away from it. They have tried, and it's never worked. It's been the last update for years now, and there is no end in sight. We're getting 1.5 and 1.6 and 1.7.